Cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. You need to have cash flow if you are investing in real estate. Now, you probably have heard this time and time again, but what exactly is cash flow? How do you calculate it? And if you want to visualize it, how do you do that in Python? I'm going to show you all of these within this video. My name is Ariel Herrera with the AnalyticsAriel channel, where we bridge the gap between real estate and technology. Now, if you're interested in Python tutorials, data tips, or just what's going on in the market technology-wise, then please subscribe to this channel. As well, like this content if you want to see more of it. All right, let's get started. I've recently developed a really fun tool that allows you to quickly analyze if a single family home could get cash flow or not. In this case, on this page, I also have an REI summary, which does a breakdown of cash flow in terms of income, expenses, as well as a breakdown visually so you could see where all those expenses are coming from. Now let's take a step back before looking at how to create that chart on why do we care about investing to begin with. One of the main reasons why we care about investing, whether it is in real estate or not, is because of inflation. Inflation is basically the cost of a good increasing over a period of time. So in this example that Investopedia has is that a movie ticket in 2005 was $6.41. By 2019, it was $9.16 because of inflation. Now, I wish a movie ticket was still that cheap because at times I even pay $18 to go see a movie. But what that really means is that if we're just saving and storing our dollars underneath a mattress, we're not actually putting it to work. And if we want to use it at a later period in time, say in this case 14 years later, it doesn't have that same value. We actually don't have the purchasing power to buy those goods that we need. Therefore, we need to beat inflation, put our money towards an investment that makes at least 6% year on year on our return. And to do that, one of the ways is through investing in real estate, and specifically investing in real estate properties that have cash flow, positive cash flows. So what is cash flow? Cash flow is a description of the way money flows through a property, similar to the way water flows over a waterfall. Basically, you're going to have income that comes from a property. So this could be rental income, how much a tenant is paying per month. It could be other fixed income, like if they have pets and you're charging $50 a month per pet. It could also be parking as well. Maybe you're charging on a monthly basis for a parking space. So this is all income streams. Now, we all wish it was all income, right? But there are expenses. In order for you to purchase a property, you need to use leverage. So most likely you're not putting all cash down. You're likely borrowing money from a bank. And to do that, you need to pay the bank on a monthly basis. And that is through the mortgage. The mortgage consists of principal and interest, taxes, and insurance all wrapped into one payment that's fixed. But you also have variable expenses. So what are these variable expenses? This can include property management fees. Maybe you live in Kentucky and your property is out in South Dakota. You're not going to be able to physically manage the property. Therefore, you may pay for a property manager who could cost 10% of the rental income per month. Then there's maintenance costs. Maybe a light bulb went out or something needs to get replaced. And then there's CapEx expenditures. This is at a higher level. So instead of fixing doorknobs and small things, CapEx is more like fixing a roof. So you know a roof is going to have to be changed every 25 to 30 years, so you need to be able to have reserves to account for that. Once we have our income, we then subtract our expenses, and what we're left with for that month is going to be our cash flow. In this example, Roofstock actually calculates it on a yearly basis. So they look at income with rental income, additional minus vacancy. If someone, say, leaves the property, you switch over a tenant, that month where maybe there's no tenant, that's going to be your vacancy. And for that total year, the gross cash flow for income was $12,000. Then for the second part, the gross expenses is $5,000, And what you would do is subtract 2 divided by 12, and this is how much cash flow you have per month. As important as this is, when we're evaluating if we want to purchase a property or not, it's really important for us to quickly see, does a property cash flow? Hence why I created this tool to quickly evaluate what is the cash on cash return and what is the monthly cash flow. If the monthly cash flow is not at our liking, what do we need to increase rent by in order to get there? Now for the fun part, let's actually go through some Python code on how we create visualizations so that we could see what our cash flow looks like. We want to be able to break down income, expenses, and then see where the outflow is going. Right now I'm in Google Colab. It allows us to code within Python without having to download Python at all into our local machines. Therefore, if you have no experience in Python, you could literally go to the link below, File, and then make a copy of this into your own drive and then run it by going to Runtime and Run All. So in this example, I am working with Plotly. Plotly is an awesome charting tool for Python as well, I believe, for Java too. And we want to be able to plot a Sankey diagram. This was my first time plotting a Sankey diagram, so I did find some oddities with it, and I made it really easy for the future if you want to be able to use this. So the whole idea of a Sankey diagram is that it allows you to see the flow of contributions visually. So in this example, we are looking at energy forecast for 2050, Department of Energy and Climate Change, and there's a lot of moving pieces here, but ultimately we have some starting points, which are our starting nodes, our end nodes, and the value between them. So going back to our notebook, I created a CSV file, so an Excel file, that has columns and rows that I load as a data frame. And you could pull this data as well. It's publicly available on GitHub. Here we have all of the elements that we care about in order to calculate cash flow. So we have our property address. The first 2 columns are going to be related to income, rent, and additional income. And the last columns are all related to expenses. So once we load in our data set, we want to set variables for each of these elements. So I'm going to run this up top, and we can add a piece of code here. We could look at rent. If I type in rent, we could see that our rent variable is 2,600, which corresponds to that value that was here. So we basically did was say, hey, for our table that we labeled DF, get the item from the rent column and select the first row, which is only 1 row here. Then we have some summary variables where we calculate totals. So in this case, total income would be rent plus additional income. And if we look at what that value came out to be, it was 2,650, which makes sense. Then for expenses, I break those out into fixed, which means it's going to be the same month over month, and then variable expenses. Now, if we go down to transform, this is where we're really starting to build the elements that we need to create this chart. So here are going to be our labels that we're going to have in our chart. And in order for us to pass in labels for the Sankey diagram, it needs integers. So in this case, the very simple example here, they have different labels, A1, A2, B1, etc. And the way this works is the source is where it starts, target is where you want to go to, and then the value. So the way you would read this here is that source A1, the target is B1, so A1 to B1, and the value is 8, which is right here. So that flow makes a lot of sense. But it gets very confusing having to write all these indices for the labels. So I made it a lot easier right here by kind of just doing that programmatically. So we have our list, and now we want to create a dictionary that basically assigns an integer to each one of these elements, which we do here. Then the next step is setting up our flows. So instead of saying 0 to 2 to 2,600, we're just going to make it super easy by writing it down. So here I have some sublists, and in this example, I want to show that income goes to rent, and that value should be the rent value. Next one, income goes to additional income, and that value should be additional income. So very simple and readable in case we need to debug it later. Now, once we have this list up here, we can create sublists off of it, which allows us to get the correct integers that we need for each of these no target value pairs. So these lists now get put into the visualization. But before I get to the Sankey visualization, I created a quick indicator that totals total income minus total expense and shows what the ultimate cash flow is, which in this case is positive 186. Then we go down to create this Sankey diagram, and we're only doing 4 parameters that we're passing in. We pass in our label list, then our source list, target list, and value list. Once we do, we then get this diagram that's going to show us income, expense, and then expense broken out into fixed, variable, and then each of those pieces alongside of that. So let's just do a quick check here. If we go back up to our Sankey list and we look at expenses, we could see here for our variable expenses that we have variable for CapEx should be the CapEx value. So let's pull what that is, which is $130. And if we go down here, we could see when we hover over the variable to CapEx that we do see 130. So we know this is pulling accurately. Now what's awesome with Plotly is that it's interactive. So there's much that we could do with it. We can highlight over and we can see some values. We could also do even more there. If we go to some of the examples in Plotly, hover features, which I highly encourage for you to look further into. And in the case for this chart, I kept it pretty simple. Hover is simple, but I did try to make the hover template a little bit different. So if we hover over this purple indigo piece, we could see that it says income has total value of 2.65K. And if we go to the hover template above, we could see that our label was our variable, and then we added some text, has total value, and the value appeared. And that's how we got that hover feature there. So overall, I hope this has been super useful to have a better understanding of why we look at cash flow, the components that go into it, and then ultimately, if you want to be able to chart this, how you can do so in Python. As well, if you're interested in using the tool that I've built to look at cash flow for a single property, then please check out on my website tools that are available. As well, feel free to reach out to me directly if any comments and feedback. Thanks.